Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NeuroAnimation Grow Your Brain podcast. I'm your host, Maddi, and today I am joined by Pam Marshall, owner of Marshall Pediatric Therapy, OT, and the owner of the newest NeuroAnimation Center in Lexington, Kentucky. Thank you for joining us today, Pam.
I'm so excited to be here, Maddi. This is a topic I'm passionate about.
So, Pam, you've been in the therapy space for many, many years. I'm wondering what brought about this interest in you and your interest in bringing this therapy?
Well, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I've been doing this a long time, about 35 years. And from both my, wearing the hat of an OT and the hat of a mom, I raised 5 children and had one of ours had severe ADHD, a lot of challenges. I just was a mom passionate about looking for options like non-medication options and options to help my child through development. And I would have loved something like NeuroAnimation, something that's actually changing the brain, growing the brain and making new connections. I would have loved to have found this. And so I want to bring it and share the good news so other moms can pick it.
I would love to. I want to hear more about the new NeuroAnimation clinic. But before that, maybe you could just talk a little bit about what your experience was like as a mom raising a child with a neurological condition and what therapies helped or tactics.
So, it was a gift that I had my pediatric occupational therapy background because I had a lot of tools in my tool belt as a mom, where I feel like a lot of moms that don't have that, they don't know some of the things that help, some of the strategies that help children with ADHD. And maybe that's what drives some moms just to go straight toward medication. But I was really fortunate. I recognized it in him at a very young age. I started having charts and strategies when he was probably 2.5 because
oh my gosh.
He would care more about the experience. He wanted to experience something more than he cared about the consequences. Like even when it was something he knew he wasn't supposed to do, just the drive to experience it was greater. And he was that kid that pulled the toilet paper out and had the soap bubbling up coming out of the sink. And
we all know one of those.
Yeah, shampoo on his head and, you name it. Some of the journey that I had, I think the strategies of lots of structure and routine and repeating the things that work and getting kind of down on your child's level and listening to them and remembering that their whole day can't be the no's and don't and stop and correcting. Like they need more than that, right? Because sometimes we don't realize how many times we say those things like, oh, stop, don't. And they hear that from so many people, maybe from teachers and just other adults that are in their life because they're constantly doing something maybe they shouldn't be doing, or they're just curious. They're highly curious children. And so I think I remember my husband and I took him, I think he was maybe around 9, 10 years old, to a psychologist who did diagnose him. And he said the most striking thing to me and the most beautiful thing that really helped me in my journey of parenting him. But he said, he has such a beautiful soul. And if you can just keep him from getting wrecked by other people. And that just stuck with me because children who are different and who demand the extra, they can sometimes be viewed as problem children or, being targeted very negatively. And so that flipped a little switch in me to be his advocate, protector, champion him in a positive way.
And also, what a great way also to challenge your OT background. Like, mom's an OT, and she comes up with all these cool tactics for me to use but that are actually relevant to your life and to your son's life, helping him to live better.
We had a long list of things to do, but, it still didn't work. It didn't fix him. I knew that it was a journey. I wasn't going to fix his brain quickly. But why I'm so passionate about this new type of therapy about neuroanimation is it really is changing the brain.
How did you find out about neuroanimation, Pam?
Well, I have a friend who my husband and I were renting one of his homes that he has, and it was beautiful. It was out of the country, and we were planning this trip, and I knew he had been a part of, probably for about a year or so, I knew he had been a part of something. I vaguely heard about it, but I didn't really understand what it was. And through those interactions of renting his home, I just said, you got to stop and tell me what this is. And so we put a date on the calendar when we got back to make sure that we could have a conversation and he could share it with me. So I actually waited. It was almost, 2 or 3 months before we actually had that conversation because I kept kind of hounding him. You got to tell me what this is. And so it was this friend who was connected to the founder and creator of NeuroAnimation who met him through a house rental situation too. It was all coincidence.
Goodness. It all comes back to the house renting.
It does. It comes back to that. So anyway, that's my connection. And once I took a good look at it and went and visited the center in Ohio that opened in the very beginning, like soon after they opened, I just knew there was something really special about this. And I began to read the science behind it and read everything I could, every article, and I just thought, oh, this is something amazing. This is groundbreaking.
So Pam, for listeners who maybe aren't familiar with neuroanimation, can you explain it to the viewers in simple terms and maybe the science behind it?
I'll try to explain it like a mom would want to know what it's doing. So there is an area of the brain, the hippocampus, kind of the center of the brain, that connects so many other parts to the brain. It's also the center, the area where new neurons are generated. And there's been tons of studies about like when the brain is damaged or, someone gets a head injury, those neurons will go to the injured site or, stroke, they'll go to the injured site. So there's lots of research on this area of the brain. But anyway, kind of the gist of it is using what would appear to be a game. You walk into a room and there's cameras mapping your body and there's nothing on you, but you interact with this wall-sized screen that has all underwater animals, and they're magnificent. They're so cool. And the animation is real and lifelike, but you become the fish or the shark or the octopus, and you're moving that animal to do different, activities. So an OT would describe it as sustained cognitive motor planning that's unpredictable. So you have no idea. It's not a learned pattern or game or anything. It's very unpredictable, and you've got to problem solve and motor plan the whole time. And it's a long hour at a time. I mean, it feels long and hard to do an hour. And so it's very fatiguing. You did it.
I've done it too. It is very fatiguing.
It's very fatiguing. And so what it does is it's targeting that area of the brain that then is allowing those new neurons to create new connections. So after you are playing for an hour, as you know, you go do consolidated activities. So for you wanted to move your left hand and open your hand more. So you worked on activities to open that hand. And that created those new pathways to help you do that. Just remarkable that gains can be made past what we thought possible. And with children, it's such an amazing time when their brain is being formed and when they're going through development to be able to rewire their brain. That's essentially, lots of us have heard that term.
Kids
rewiring.
are so malleable.
They're so neuroplastic. And even as an occupational therapist, I specialized in helping kids rewire their brain and integrate reflexes and do all these things that help them be more functional. And I always think of children as the most important thing you can think about is what's their output? What can they do, right? What are they able to do? Are they able to follow a routine in the morning and get dressed and brush their teeth and eat breakfast and do all the things they need to do to get out the door? What is their output? Are they able to developmentally accomplish the things they need to at their age? Are they able to listen and comprehend? Are they able to read, do schoolwork, do, all the things that a child needs to do in their day to learn and grow and develop? That's what I think about with them, is what's their output. And if we can help that brain get rewired so their output is easier and more effective, like that's the goal. Imagine that treatment time getting shrunk down. Imagine, them making progress faster. That's what neuroanimation does for children.
And what I feel like, just from my own experience having gone through neuroanimation, is that you're moving in my case, my affected hand is my left hand. I'm moving my arm in ways that I was not really ever doing before, and definitely not in a conventional therapy setting. So it challenges me in a different way. And I think for children as well, how do you see children who have had stroke, acquired brain injury, TBI, or other neurological conditions? How do you see it happening in your own clinic right now, helping children?
Well, that is a really great question. So there are children all the time with TBIs, from car accidents. That's the most common way, or young teenagers. And many times teenagers will go through the adult route of rehab, just like you went through that adult route. When you think about a teenager who might be driving a car and they might be 16 or 17. But my first job out of college was actually on an adult head injury unit. Now they call it TBI, but back then it was called head injury. And we did have a lot of car accident, teens. And I think it's groundbreaking for all of those kids that are recovering from such life-altering injuries. Mm-hmm. We also have children. We have quite a few children who maybe have had a brain tumor or some other reason that they've had brain surgery, and then that surgery causes the injury, from having to remove the tumor or whatever it is. And they have to regain skills back. And I think about those children, this is life-altering for them as well. ADHD, it's unknown how this will impact autism. We know that we've had adult with autism have some great breakthrough. But what I know about autism, that I think this will be groundbreaking. Wow. So I'm eager to bring it to Lexington and eager to get children with autism in, for sure.
So Pam, neuroanimation, what you were just talking about is how this breakthrough innovative therapy is helping encourage neuroplasticity within our brains so that children and adults alike can continue to recover beyond what maybe doctors and therapists have told them is possible for them, especially with stroke and brain injury. Can you explain a little bit about what neuroplasticity is?
What is so neat about our brain is we hear that term rewiring, like we were talking a minute ago, that the brain can rewire. Well, when you think about when you get blood flow to that hippocampus region and those new neurons are there, it allows those brain cells to create new pathways. So whether that's a motor pathway, you think about memory, we've seen cognition and memory improve from neuroanimation, that neuroplasticity, and as therapists, we talk about it all the time, wanting kids to rewire. Like I would use a rule of thumb, repeat this activity 10 times. If I wanted a kid to, learn a new motor skill, I would repeat that motor skill over and over and over again to get that new motor pathway, kind of that relearning in. But the neuroplasticity is really when you're creating new connections, new pathways. So I think that's what's so unique about this, is it allows that to happen I think, quicker. We know the science behind it. The brain is actually growing, the blood is flowing, and the brain is growing. That's been proven.
I love that saying, the blood, if the blood is flowing, the brain is growing.
Yeah.
But can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, there is a lot of science behind neurodegenerative diseases. That area, that region of the brain, the hippocampus, is kind of shrunk or reduced.
After an injury? Or?
Yeah, after an injury, or even with ADHD, autism. You also see it, in the elderly going the other way. So dementia, Parkinson's, some of the neurodegenerative diseases as we get older, there's less blood flow there. But it is also true with developmental neurodegeneration. The other thing is executive function. Like when you think about a child with ADHD, like my child, executive function is the ability that a child has to plan, organize, sequence, and then hence execute or do the thing. So we think about a task like, does your child bring their homework home? Does it actually get in their bag? Does it get home with them? And then are they able to remember it, to put it back in their backpack and take it back to school and actually turn it in? Like there's a whole bunch of steps in that little simple process that children that don't have executive function problems, they can just do that. But children who do have executive function problems, they get lost along that way. There's so many steps to remember and to do that simple task doesn't get done. And there's so much angst for a parent. I know because I lived it. There's so much pain in just the process of getting homework to and from school.
It is a lot of steps and a lot of planning. And listening to this, it doesn't really sound like it. But I know, at least for myself, when I was going through the early days of stroke recovery, I thought it was so dumb that I had to sit through therapy. I had to learn how to organize my planner,
right?
Record my appointments. These dumb things that I used to be able to just do it all in my head. And now I'm having to write down everything because I don't trust my memory. I might not remember it, and help me relearn strategies to navigate these daily tasks that used to be easy for me and were now really hard.
And so you had to go through kind of that cognitive training, that executive function training to get back to where you were.
I hated it.
You were a brilliant college student, managing it all just fine before your stroke, right?
Right. No, I didn't have ADHD or anything like that when I was younger. It's just been from the result of my stroke that I had to relearn how to do all these cognitive skills.
And this matters tremendously for children because there's something, when you work with children, there's rehabilitation and habilitation. So do you know the difference between rehabilitation and habilitation?
I don't, which is why I was about to ask you, what are these two? What is rehabilitation versus habilitation?
So rehabilitation is actually when you lose a skill. So like in your case,
I go through rehabilitation.
You went through rehabilitation because you had an injury when you have an accident, injury, or insult that damages your brain or your body, and you have to regain skills or relearn. It's new. You have this impairment, and you're having to learn how to sit up, stand up, walk again, dress yourself again, talk, think, do all the things again after your injury.
And let me take a guess. Yeah. Then habilitation is when you didn't have that before and you have to find a way to learn it?
You have never acquired the skill yet because you're going through development.
You're going through learning.
A 5-year-old, right? They don't know how to do the things that a 10-year-old knows how to do yet.
Of course.
Right? They're still learning. So a 5-year-old that has intervention or therapy, that's called habilitation. That they haven't learned or acquired the skill yet. They're at an age where they haven't learned or acquired it yet. But they might have a neurological impairment or a diagnosis or something that's making development a challenge for them. So they need help through their journey of development to be able to achieve and get to the skills that they need to learn. But it basically is they haven't learned or acquired the skill yet.
Well, you learn something new every day.
So there's actually, it's interesting that parents, you may or may not know, those of you that have children in therapy, you might know that actually on your medical claim form, there's a modifier that says whether this is habilitation or rehabilitation.
Never noticed that.
Yeah, it's actually you're able to pick which one it is. But for, children with neuroanimation, they definitely, most of them have not learned or acquired the skill yet. So like a child with dyslexia that's learning how to read, that can't decode words, they haven't learned how to do it yet. But neuroanimation would help them acquire that skill.
So neuroanimation can not only be effective in a rehabilitative case, but also in a habilitative case.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. Woo!
You're
Yay!
learning. I'm giving you a high five. Yes.
Oh, actually, wait, affected hand high five.
All right. Oh, yes. I love it.
It's getting better.
It is getting better.
So in my case, it was really great to discover that there is something like neuroanimation. And when I first entered into boot camp, it was about a year ago. It was 2025 in May. And I mean, I hadn't been in conventional therapy since before the pandemic. So I had been just doing stuff on my own, and I didn't want to settle. And I thought, this can't be it. There has to be a way that I can continue to get better, because I'd been told by many doctors and therapists, like, you'll make the most improvements within the first couple of years.
Right.
And like after that, it might just be learning how to live with what you can do.
Right.
And
And
I
most
think that
people
was
say
true.
6 months to a
Yeah,
year is like
exactly.
it. And then you're stuck. Yeah.
So when I entered into neuroanimation, I'd definitely been experiencing a sort of plateau, so to speak. And I just thought, I'll try anything that might be able to help me get some form of gain, because I don't think this is all that's in store for me. I think that I can achieve more. And I was skeptical, but I was also then blown away by the fact that my hand got so much looser, and I was able to open it, which I couldn't do before. It was in a fist. So
and that
things
just
like
doesn't happen. Like for people listening that you haven't been around someone with a stroke and, a stuck hand, it just doesn't happen.
Exactly. And especially when you're 8 years out from your stroke. It definitely doesn't happen then. And I've been going back to neuroanimation every few months because I keep wanting to achieve more, and I think that it's possible. And lately in my last round of boot camp, I was able to pinch with my thumb and my index finger and even open my thumb. My thumb was stuck and would bend underneath my hand.
Yeah.
And it's getting better. So I don't think there's a limit.
We OTs, like that blows my OT brain away because stuck thumbs typically don't come out.
Don't get
unstuck. They stay stuck.
And certainly not 9 years after your stroke.
Right. Yeah. Usually we would just put that in a splint and go, well, just splint it, and that's what you have.
What is some advice that you could give to some moms or parents listening to this episode who might be looking for some sort of rehabilitation or habilitation for their child and not sure if neuroanimation could be the fit?
Yeah. Well, definitely, if you're the mom willing to try something, like you want to put the work in, right? It's a lot of effort. And you may not be near a center because honestly, we're just growing these centers. They're brand new. So it would be travel and expense and time and effort. And all those things are worth it if you pick it. But you have to, weigh that out and say, I'm ready to do it. I've met so many parents that have done intensives or have done intensive therapy programs or have, flown to other countries for treatments or done all kinds of things. And if you're that parent, it's worth it. You're going to see a big difference in your child. And right now we have the cameras and the rooms positioned for about age 7 and up. So it's kind of like what you think of when you go to I don't know what Disney's height is, but when you go to a big amusement park or something, it's kind of that height and above. And I think there'll be a day we'll zone those cameras down. But for right now, we have them honed in on age 7 and up. So that gives you a good feel for, would my child be a candidate? And we have a whole screening process. So even if you're interested, you can just reach out and our team will help discern whether this is right or not for you and your child. But I think I'm really just speaking to those moms that have a lot of hope and want to put the work in and want to go a non-medicated route and want to permanently, if you understand neuroplasticity, really making the connections that your child's brain needs to respond differently, to grow and develop and learn and achieve. I think if you're that mom, this is for you and your child.
So Pam, for parents who might be considering bringing their child to the NeuroAnimation Center, what kinds of outcomes might they expect to happen?
We know that we have enough research and data that cognitive gains are very, very solid. We use pre-post tests, and the average cognitive gain is like 38% on the Dana, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's huge.
And we know that whatever the targeted goal is for your child, there will be gains with that goal. Like, we know that's true. So I think the detailed expectations will come kind of through that process of a screening call, the initial discovery call, we call it, where you're able to ask a lot of detailed questions about that. So, but it's exciting. Your child will definitely make gains.
All right. So on that note, Pam, if parents could remember one thing from this conversation, what would it be?
It would be there's hope. Try it. Just come try NeuroAnimation. There is hope, and you will see change.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam, for joining me on an episode of Grow Your Brain. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.